Once again, welcome all to the adult-sponsored online FDP on cybersecurity and digital forensic. Now we will move to the second session. I'm very happy to invite Dr. Ashwini Kumar, Professor, School of Information Technology and Engineering, Vellore Institute of Technology. He holds PhD from VIT. His research interests are information security and machine learning. He published more than 150 referred research papers so far in various national, international journals and conferences. He received Young Scientist Fellowship from Tamil Nadu State Council for Science and Technology for his research at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Bombay. He also received research publication awards. His biography is included in Mars Who's Who in the World 2011 edition. He received the Indian Express Inspiring Teacher Award 40 under 40. At present, he is the principal investigator of major research project sponsored by MHRD, Government of India under Spark program. Moreover, he is a senior member of ACM and is associated with other professional bodies like ISC, CSI, ISTE, AI, IAS, CSIT. He is a distinguished member in ACM Eminent Speakers Program. Thank you, sir. I am welcome you for the presentation, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, madam. Am I audible?
Yes, sure, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So hope my slides are visible to everyone, right? Madam?
Yeah, fine, sir. Yeah.
Are my slides visible to
Yes, sure,
everybody?
sir. It's audio. Yes, sir. It is visible. Yeah. It's quite good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Yes.
at the outset, I would like to thank Professor Panchami for inviting me to deliver a talk on this AICTE sponsored faculty development program. And I know Dr. Panchami from the past 10 years, and she's a hardworking personality and very passionate and curious to explore things. And I appreciate Dr. Panchami and her team in organizing this particular faculty development program. And I looked at the speakers list, and she made an excellent homework of inviting the eminent speakers. And also, I would like to congratulate all the participants who have joined this particular program and probably handling your own routine activities of academic and personal activities, and out of your curiosity and passion to learn, you have joined this faculty development program. And I hope this my talk would be an informative and throw some light on the cryptographic algorithms, and those who wanted to pursue their research or the teaching in this line, that would certainly help them. And so my talk today would be focusing on, I will be going through the various topics of cryptography, starting from the classical and to the current quantum cryptography. So I hope, am I audible, madam? So shall I proceed in the same pace?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah.
You can.
So
Yeah.
my talk would be, if you observe the image that what I have mentioned in the cryptography, which is having the roots as a tree. If you visualize cryptography, the subject, it has the roots to the number theory in general, because most of the cryptographic algorithms, especially the public key algorithms, are mathematically oriented. And I'm happy to note that yesterday there was a talk on number theory and mathematical principles behind the cryptography. And I'm sure the today talk would help you to go in depth of those mathematical principles. And also it has the roots in information theory and computational complexity theory. And current quantum theory is having the roots in physics quantum mechanics. So if you see the cryptography as the theory, these are the roots. And the tree has the branches, which are the typical applications. starting from your the digital signatures, key transfer mechanisms, the certificate, digital certificates, what we are using, or else, or what are all the online transactions what we are making. All these are all applications of the cryptography, this as a cryptography subject. So the talk would be basically it goes like this. I'll be talking about the principles of cryptography and the classical cryptography in general, but I will not deal much of the classical cryptography because it is well discussed in the literature. Those who are interested, when I say classical cryptography, it is the cryptography or the art of secret writing that was there in the pre-World War era. That means when there was no digital computers, how people were writing secretly. I will just give a pointer for that, but I will not deal much on that. But from then onwards, especially post World War II, when we have the digital communications, digital computers, and all, the symmetric cryptography, the data encryption standard and advanced encryption standard, and the asymmetric cryptography, which is public key cryptography. I will be talking on RSA and Diffie-Hellman key exchange principles. Then I'll be throwing some light on the quantum computing, because the quantum cryptography is fundamentally using the principles of quantum computing. So I'll be touching upon the quantum computing principles, but I understand that afternoon there is a session which is going to deal with much in detail about the quantum computing for the cryptography. So my talk would be giving some it will throw some light on the quantum computing principles, and it will not go much in depth of it. But I'll be talking on quantum key distribution, how these quantum computing principles are helping in establishing the key between the two communicating parties. So especially how they can address the fundamental problems that are there with the Diffie-Hellman key exchange or any standard key exchange principles. So this overall, my talk would go like this. So in the digital world, all of us, we are aware that there are a lot of security related threats, and obviously cryptography is the mainly a defense mechanism that is associated with the cybersecurity. Especially when we say security, in general, we say security, but in principle, there are several pillars of cryptography. One is confidentiality, another one is integrity, then you have authentication. Of course, there are some more like non-repudiation, availability, like that. There are several other principles or pillars or services. But predominantly, people talk about these three principles: confidentiality, integrity, and authentication, in the sense that how my communication or how my message or how my information is confidential means it is known only to the authenticated or authorized people, not anyone else. So how I can keep my information confidential? That is confidentiality. It is available or it is known only to the authenticated people. Integrity deals with, it is those people or those. Hello, madam, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. You can.
yeah,
Yeah, you can continue,
yeah, yeah.
sir. Yeah.
So
Sure.
integrity deal with who can modify the information. Is it anybody can modify, or only who can modify? Only authenticated people modify the information and no one else. That deals with integrity. Authentication is how I can authenticate the source of a particular message, how I can authenticate user of a particular information. So this is about authentication. So you have confidentiality, integrity, authentication. But as I have mentioned, there are some other principles. But let us uh, focus predominantly on these three. So these three principles in general and other principles also constitute a broad spectrum of information security or cyber security in principle. So confidentiality is provided. How you can provide that? Of course, it is through encryption, because once you encrypt the data, and it is like, you are locking a particular valuable item, and those who are having the key to unlock that only can open that, no one else. So it is confidentiality is provided, and only authenticated person will have the key for that. So it is encryption of the data. Integrity is provided. Of course, there are encryption mechanisms, but there are hash functions, digital signatures. All these are all rooted to cryptography. And authenticity, that means how you can authenticate somebody. Okay, so somebody wants to join this particular FDP talk. Is it that anybody can join, or there should be some kind of an authentication mechanism? Okay, so how to authenticate? It is through some kind of a key mechanisms. So cryptography is essential for all the business functions, starting from online transactions, what we are making, or any other for that matter. The more we go digital, the more we need security, and hence you rely upon more and you rely upon the cryptographic algorithms for that particular purpose. The security information is typically classified based upon the expectation that will remain secret for a particular duration of time. Say, take an example, a question paper. Question paper, there is a lifetime. When we say a question paper, it should be kept confidential. Of course, not forever. It should be kept confidential for a particular duration of time. That means till you conduct the exam. So that means your security algorithm should be strong enough to withstand any attack, that would be there on that particular the source or the resource till the lifetime of that particular resource. So in this case, if any security attack that is there till the lifetime of the question paper, if the algorithm is able to withstand, that means the algorithm is providing security to that particular resource. So using traditional CPU computing, what are all the algorithms that are engineered? Now we are able to provide strong security to those resources. But the recent developments, especially in terms of the quantum computing and quantum speed up, these are posing several challenges to the cryptography researchers or security related researchers to make more and more robust algorithms or devise more and more secure mechanisms, because these algorithms on what our classical computers are executing and providing security are becomes vulnerable in a quantum environment. So in 1994, Peter Shor has proposed the algorithm, the first algorithm, through which one can break all public key cryptography algorithms. And of course, even though it was proposed in 1994, since there were no quantum computers at that particular period of time, or in the last 20 to 25 years, people were little cool in the sense that though the algorithm and technique was there, since physical realization of that algorithm was not there, our resources were all secured. But now, in the quantum computing arena, I hope you are all seeing in the news about Google is making the announcement of quantum supremacy and all that. Slowly, there are baby steps, or there are steps towards achieving the quantum computers. But of course, it takes more and more time. About people think that a true quantum computer would be realized in the next 10 to 12 years down the line. But there are steps, and there are physical realization of quantum computers. So this makes disruptions in the security as such. So this particular talk, as I've mentioned, would be talking about cryptographic techniques from classical to quantum. And in the quantum spectrum, I will be talking about the quantum key distribution. So if you see the overall history of the cryptography or security per se, what is actually cryptography is to write secretly. Whatever I wanted to say, if I can write secretly, if I can exchange the information in a secret manner. But is it something new that has come? No, but it is there from ancient history. So those who are really interested to look into the ancient history and then the art of secret writing, there is various resources available online, and also there are standard certain books has the literature related to the historical developments in the cryptography or historical developments in the secret writing. So I would recommend those who are interested in that to go to that literature and read that. Of course, I have given a pointer about the resource history of cryptography in syllabus on information security training, which is a conference paper. It has the links to the resources. And also there are certain cryptography and books which has the history related to the cryptography. So you can divide the history of cryptography as a pre-scientific period from ancient times, go back to the Mesopotamia times to the end of the 17th century. And similarly, of course, that was purely depends upon the science. And in the classical scenario, where in which your Caesar ciphers and then the polyalphabetic ciphers, monoalphabetic kind of a ciphers, and all these things have come. The basic classical period was from your 18th century to the 19th century. But when once the next transition in the modern digital arena, that means the digital computers after World War II and all that has come, we have the classical to the modern science. That means the 19th century to the 20th century, we have the modern cryptography. And then modern cryptography started from 20th century onwards. So there is a long history. Those who are interested can go back to the literature and read that. So let me give you let me throw some light on various terminology what typically we use. And people loosely use these terms, but each term has a meaning. What is meant by cryptography? The cryptography is nothing but the mathematical techniques related to making of the secret codes. People use these techniques. Of course, they are rooted to the mathematics, but there are certain algorithms not essentially rooted to the mathematics, like the classical, the symmetric key techniques, not essentially related to the mathematics, but there are other techniques. But predominantly, it is mathematically rooted. So techniques related to making of secret codes. Secret code in the sense, I have a plain text, I want to communicate it in a confidential manner, so I want to convert it into a secret piece. So the cryptanalysis is nothing but how you can break the secret codes. So the techniques that are dealing with breaking of the secret codes. And what do you mean by cryptology? Cryptology are nothing but the techniques related to both making and breaking of secret codes. So cryptography, cryptology, they are different in the sense that one is talking about the making of the secret codes, another one is talking about making and breaking of the secret codes. What do you mean by, somebody may think, okay, why I am saying breaking, why it is decryption? So can I call it as a decryption? So decryption is something, when you say encrypt, you are making the secret code. When you are decrypting it, you are converting the secret code back to the plain text. But if conversion from secret to the plain text is done by the authenticated person, you call it as a decryption. But if another unauthenticated source is doing this conversion, you call it as the cryptanalysis, because it is like a thief. So breaking of the code is different, decrypting the secret code is different. And similarly, you use a term called encode. What do you mean by encoding? Process of translating the entire word or a phrase to other phrase. So it's called encoding. What do you mean by enciphering? It is in the sense that the process of translating the letters. There is a difference between encode and encipher. Encipher, the input is the string, the word. The enciphering, the input is your a single alphabet. So essentially, it is like you are giving input of word for encoding purpose. You are giving an input of alphabet for enciphering purpose. It's like a stream. So what do you mean by encryption? If you are using both encoding and enciphering, you are calling it as encryption. So now, these are the terminology that typically people use. Of course, people use in a very loose manner, but each one is having a meaning. Okay. Now, when I am performing this encryption, I have already said you are breaking it, you are decrypting it, and you are breaking it. Breaking is done by a thief or an unauthenticated, unauthorized person. Now, the point is, in the case of encryption, there are two types of crypto systems predominantly. One is symmetric key crypto system, and another one is the asymmetric key crypto system or public key crypto system. In the symmetric key crypto system, the encryption and the decryption, that means you are actually keeping some kind of an item in a box, you are locking it. So keeping that in the box and locking it is called encryption. But in order to lock it, you need a key. So you use the same key for locking purpose and of course the same key for unlocking purpose. So the example for the symmetric, this process is called symmetric key crypto system in encryption terminology. So you take the plain text at the sender and you perform the encryption with the help of the key, and the same key should be used at the receiver side or the other side to perform the decryption. So when once you perform the encryption, whatever the output you you call it as a ciphertext, and at the receiver you perform the decryption through the same key, and that would be the plain text you are getting back. Now, when it comes to the asymmetric crypto system, there is a one key for encryption purpose. There is another key for decryption purpose. So you call encryption key KE and the decryption key KD. And hence, what happens, the advantage of having the asymmetric crypto system is that if you observe the above diagram, the key has to be shared between the two sides. That means both sender and receiver. In the asymmetric crypto system, now the problem of sharing the key is gone. So you are using one key for encryption purpose and another key for decryption purpose. But this particular problem of key sharing is solved. But for that matter, there are other complexities that are introduced that we will be discussing when we proceed further. So the point is symmetric crypto system and asymmetric, because you are using two different keys, you call it as an asymmetric. And since you are using the same key, you call it as a symmetric crypto system. And if you go into the literature, as my suggestion, those who are already familiar, or if you are not familiar with the cryptography, the William Stallings book of cryptography and network security is the most authenticated source. It has the fundamentals. I would strongly suggest to refer that. So you call a crypto system as, in a mathematical terms, as C is equal to E of K comma P, where P is the plain text and K is the key that what we are supplying, and E is the encryption algorithm. The output is the C, the ciphertext. And the overall crypto system is called P is equal to D of K comma E of K comma P. E of K comma P gives you the C, and D of K comma C gives you the plain text back. Okay. And remember, if you observe here, we are using the same K here for encryption purpose and the same key for the decryption purpose, and hence this particular crypto system is the symmetric encryption algorithm and symmetric crypto system. Now imagine if it is asymmetric, what will happen is you are going to have E of KE comma P, which is the encryption algorithm with the help of KE, that means the encryption key. And whatever you get is the ciphertext. And if you apply the KD, that means the decryption key, you get the plain text back. So E of K comma P happens at the sender, D of K comma C happens at the receiver. Okay, so this is the general diagram, and these crypto systems are characterized into three different dimensions on what are the operations that we are performing, especially on the plain text. So I want to convert my plain text to the ciphertext. How I can convert? You need to perform certain operations. What operations I am performing? There are in general two operations. One is the substitution, another one is the transposition. So substitution, you are replacing one alphabet with another alphabet of the plain text. It is called substitution. In the transposition, what we do is we take the alphabets in the particular word itself, and we will change the positions of the alphabets in that particular word. So that is called transposition. Okay. So of course, both are having two different goals. Goal of substitution is to create the confusion. Goal of transposition is to get the diffusion. So these are the operations. The substitution operation. So I have the alphabet. If you take A to Z of the English, I can substitute an alphabet with another alphabet. So that's a substitution. Transposition, as I've said, you will not take the entire alphabets, but rather you take the alphabets that are there in that particular word. If you take an example of transposition as a word, it has certain alphabets. Now I permute the positions of these alphabets to different locations. So let us say T can go to the last position, N can come to this particular position. This is called permutation of these positions. So the goal of this is to diffuse the information. The goal of substitution is to confuse the attacker. And the other vertical of the characterizing the cryptography system is the number of keys what we are using. Whether it is I'm using symmetric key in the sense that same key for encryption purpose and the same key for the decryption purpose, or whether I am using the asymmetric key, that means one key for encryption and another key for the decryption. And remember, there are algorithms, cryptographic algorithms that they don't use keys at all. Okay, they are called hash-based algorithms, but today we don't touch those particular aspects. And similarly, the way in which the plain text is processed, in the sense that in one of the terminology I have talked about encoding and enciphering. So the input what I am giving for the encryption algorithm, am I giving alphabet by alphabet, or am I giving a block of plain text? So if the input is a block of plain text, you get the block of ciphertext, and hence you call it a block cipher. If my input is the alphabet by alphabet, the stream, and you get the cipher alphabet set output, and hence you call it as a stream cipher. So these are the three characters, three independent dimensions. And if you observe, these encryption algorithms is a mixture of all these things. That means you will find a block symmetric substitution cipher like that. Similarly, the cryptanalysis, you have different attacks possible on the encryption algorithms. One is the ciphertext only attack, known plain text attack, chosen plain text attack, and chosen ciphertext attack. Madam, am I audible? Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're audible.
Yes, yes. And so far any doubts? I think I am not seeing any doubts in the chat window, so I will proceed. Okay. So these are all the various attacks. Now, what happens in the communication channel? What is easily available is the ciphertext. Okay, because Alice is sending some information to the Bob by encrypting the plain text, and Eve, who is listening to this communication, can easily get the ciphertext because the channel is an open channel. Remember, we don't discuss about if the channel is secured channel, like in the case of like a local area network. We are talking about an open channel like an internet where anybody can listen to anything. So Eve is able to listen to this communication because ciphertext is easily available. If Eve, from this only available piece of information, that is the ciphertext, if Eve is able to make the plain text out of it, that is called ciphertext only attack. Remember, this is very tough. Only professional may be able to do this. Of course, along with the ciphertext, the cryptographic algorithm that is implemented between Alice and Bob is also known in general publicly. And but with the available piece of information, that is the ciphertext and the encryption algorithm that is used, Eve is able to break it, then you call it as the ciphertext only attack. And the next level of attack is the known plain text attack. That means along with the ciphertext and the encryption algorithm, if the eavesdropper known about some part of like what is given a particular this particular plain text, and this is the ciphertext, this particular plain text, this is the ciphertext. If this type of combinations, if the attacker knows, it is called known plain text attack. The other point is, if Eve is able to identify for the chosen plain text what is the corresponding ciphertext, that is called chosen plain text attack. And chosen ciphertext, the Eve is choosing the ciphertext and corresponding plain text. If Eve is able to identify, and from that particular pieces, if attacker is able to make the attack, that is called chosen ciphertext attack. And remember, these are the various. Of course, there is an attack called chosen text attack, which is a combination of known and as well as chosen. Okay, so in any in the security, an encryption scheme, you call it as an unconditionally secure if the ciphertext generated by the scheme do not provide enough information to the attacker to determine corresponding plain text. Okay, no matter how much information of the ciphertext is available, if attacker is unable to identify, you call it as a unconditionally secure ciphers. But typically, we don't have unconditionally secure. We call it as computationally secure. Okay, because some pieces of information would be known to the attacker and are able to make the breaking the encryption algorithms. So all the users of encryption algorithm can strive for an algorithm that meets these particular criteria. One is cost of breaking the cipher exceeds the value of encrypted information. What do you mean by value of encrypted information? As I've said, if my encryption algorithm is able to provide security, and implementing that encryption algorithm, cost of that is exceeding the value of encrypted information. What is the trade-off? That is one parameter. Second parameter is what is the time required to break the cipher. If my cipher is able to provide the security till the lifetime of the information, as I've given the example of question paper, that's fine with me. Okay. So basing upon this, the Kerckhoffs principle says the crypto system should be secure even if everything about the system is known to the people except the key. So that's why if you have observed in the cryptanalysis, the ciphertext is known to the attacker, the encryption algorithm is known to the attacker. Like that, whatever the pieces of information that are known to the attacker, but in spite of that, if the key is not available, if the attacker is not able to make it attack, you call that system as a secured system. Okay. Now let us proceed to the standard algorithms. As I've already said, the pre-World War, we have so many classical ciphers: Caesar cipher, monoalphabetic cipher, Vigneri cipher, Playfair cipher, Hill cipher. Like that, there are so many ciphers, polyalphabetic ciphers. Of course, there are the attacks on that. But these ciphers, when we have the digital computers, and when once the speed of the digital computers has increased, the CPU clock cycles are increased, these algorithms were not able to provide no more secure. And hence, you have the standard encryption algorithms that have come into place. The first such algorithm is the data encryption standard. So the DES was introduced in late 1970s, and it's a beautiful algorithm which is a careful, complex combination of providing both substitution and transposition. Hope you were a few minutes back we talked about what do you mean by substitution, what do you mean by transposition, and what is the goal of substitution and what is the goal of transposition. A few minutes back we talked about it. And the beauty of this algorithm is the algorithm executes for about 16 number of iterations. That means 16 cycles it undergoes. So it's like a repetition of the process. So the complexity of the algorithm through 16 iterations of substitution and transposition operations together has made this algorithm popular in those days. And this particular algorithm of DES was in place till early 90s, when people identified after 90s, during early 90s, people were able to break this particular algorithm. So the algorithm begins, how this algorithm works is, it begins by encrypting the plain text as a block of 64 bits. So you take the plain text, divide the plain text into 64-bit blocks. So essentially you are giving to the algorithm a block of 64-bit as an input. And similarly, you take a 64-bit length key that would be supplied as an input. Remember, as we are talking about, what we are talking now is about the symmetric key encryption algorithm. So your key is same for encryption purpose and decryption purpose. So you take a 64-bit length key, but you use 56-bit for that. Of course, the reason for removing this 8 bits from the 64 is to verify the perform the cross-checking of the operations. So as I've said, the algorithm uses both confusion and diffusion. Okay. So this is the overview of the algorithm of DES. You take a 64-bit plain text, and this particular block of plain text undergoes an initial permutation. That means you change the positions of the alphabets, like kind of a transposition. Of course, output would be 64 bits only. And then this particular block of 64-bit would be processed about 16 rounds of operations. Okay. So each round you will be getting the same 64-bit as a ciphertext output. Again, that same ciphertext would undergo another round. You get a ciphertext. Again, you perform the next round, so 16 rounds. Similarly, on the other side, wherein which you take the 64-bit key, so you supply only one key, then what happens? There would be a permutation operation on the key, and from that, after that you take 56 bits from the 64-bit key, then perform certain operations and supply a round key to this round 1. And after performing the round 1, then you get the ciphertext as an output, and you go to the second round. That means the ciphertext goes to the second round. For the second round, you give another sub key. Remember, I am saying another sub key. That means key has come, that is a new key. It is a new sub key. But is it a new key that the user is supplying? No. The sub key has been generated from the 64-bit initial key that is supplied. So the user has given 64-bit block and the 64-bit key. That's it. But the key generation within the algorithm is taking care of supplying for every round a new sub key. Okay. Like this, 16 rounds would be processed. And after the round 16, whatever the ciphertext that is the output would be processed further by performing a swap operation, and the final output is the we'd undergo an inverse operation for the initial permutation, and the output of this is the 64-bit block ciphertext. This is the ciphertext for the initial plain text. Okay, so I'll pause here. If any questions are there, you can just post it in the chat window. So what we are doing, you have taken a large plain text block, you want to encrypt. That would be divided into 64 bits blocks, and each 64-bit block would be processed independently. But remember, you are supplying the same key for every block. That is first point one should remember. This one 64-bit key would be processed within the algorithm such that since you have 16 rounds of operations, every round would get a sub key, okay, which is a new key and generated from the originally given key. Okay. So the 64-bit block of plain text would undergo 16 rounds of operations, and at the end, after all these operations, at the end, whatever the ciphertext that you get is the ciphertext for the block that what we have given in the beginning. Like this, every block would be processed. Okay. Yeah, someone has asked about 16 rounds of operations. Is it there are several heuristics in this particular algorithm in the DES. These heuristics were fixed based upon verifying the parameters such as the security of the algorithm, efficiency of the algorithm, in the sense that I need to have efficiency in terms that my algorithm should be implementable. Number one. Number two, at the same time, I need to have the security. So this is the standard that is given. Of course, there are implementations which are giving less number of rounds. Okay. So in each round, I said about 16 rounds. What happens in each round? These are the operations that happen. These are the operations that happen in the each round. You take the plain text block. If you see here in the round one, whatever the permuted text, that would be first divided into two halves, and that means 64-bit would be divided into two halves. That means 32-bit and 32-bit, and you have supplied a key. The key that that is coming from the sub key that is coming from the key scheduling algorithm. That means the 48-bit key that would be combined with the right half. Obviously, you may get a doubt that I have a 32-bit half and you are supplying a 48-bit key. Yes, there are some operations that makes these combinations happen. When we say combine, typically, there are certain operations, but in the logical operations, one is that what we perform is an XOR operation. So you combine the key, then after that you perform some substitution operation. Okay, what substitution? There are certain rules for that. There are boxes called S boxes, substitution boxes, using which your substitution process would happen. And then similarly permutation. There is a separate operation or the box called P boxes, on which you have to perform the permutation. And once that is done, the left half that is remained would be combined with the right processed block. Okay, and this combined half would become the new right half, And similarly, the previous right half would become the new left. So this would be given as input to the next round. So the new left and the new right, and you take the new left as it is, take the new right and combine the key, and this type of operations would be conducted for about 16 rounds. So this is about the DES. Yeah, so one question is about which process will be performed in the rounds. These are the operations. So what you are doing, you are dividing the block, left half and right half. You are combining the key with the right half and performing the substitution. Remember, how you perform substitution or how you combine the key is actually, again, a topic to discuss in depth. So the substitution operation, permutation operation, and adding the halves. So if you see here, hope you are able to relate this diagram with this particular diagram. You have divided into two halves. You are expanding this 32-bit to 48-bit. And that is the reason why you are able to combine the 48-bit key that is coming from the key scheduling algorithm through XOR operation. So this 32-bit would be expanded to 48-bit. And once you perform the XOR, the output would undergo the substitution box. So that means this particular 48-bit would be processed in a manner that you get a 32-bit. Remember, the strength of DES lies here, the S-box operation, because this is the nonlinear step here in the case of DES, and this 48-bit would go to the 32-bit after performing the substitution. And after that, you perform permutation of these 32 bits and then combine that with the left half through XOR operation. That would form the new right, and the previous left would be the new left. So now you take this to LI and RI, again perform the scheduling operations, and then the next round would continue like this, about 16 rounds. And similarly, the beauty of the algorithm is that you are supplying only 64-bit key, but you are able to get lengthy for every round you are getting the sub key. How it would happen? Again, through key scheduling algorithm. So you take the 64-bit key, remove 8 bits, take the 56-bit key, and then divide into two halves, 28 and 28, perform certain shift operations on the left, and then perform certain permutation operations. That would give you a 48-bit key. That would be combined with the the right half of the plain text block. Okay, so when we teach the DES, we divide this into 6 steps, and then we teach the 6 steps. Now, for the interest, those who are really interested on this, I would recommend to go to the standard literature and this one. So this particular algorithm, as I've said, the strength of this algorithm is there with the number of rounds and the operations that what we are performing and the key scheduling algorithm. Okay, so the greater the number of rounds, the more difficult it is to perform the cryptanalysis. Okay, but the more the number of rounds you keep, you are increasing the complexity. Whether you are having efficient systems to perform this or not, it all depends upon the we need to make a trade-off. But now people were able to break this DES by early 90s, and hence they realized the need for having a new crypto system, and hence what happened, AES came into picture in the late 90s, and even now we are using the advanced encryption standard. You take any online transactions or the online communications that are there, wherever the symmetric crypto systems that are used, we are using advanced encryption standard. So AES again is similar to DES in the sense that it is a block cipher, number one. It is a symmetric cipher, number two, and it uses 128-bit block size. Remember, in the DES you are having 64-bit. Here this is using 128-bit. Means your length of the block is increased. And similarly, another beauty of the AES is it gives you the flexibility of the key size. Remember, the DES, your key size is fixed. That means the 64-bit. In the case of AES, you have option to choose whatever is the length of the key size: 128-bit, 192-bit, 256-bit. People recommend more the number of bits of the key and more the strength of the algorithm. And AES do not use typical DES structure. In fact, DES is rooted to a structure called a fiscal structure. The kind of operations that what DES is performing is called the fiscal structure operations. In the sense that you are dividing the block into two halves and then keeping the left half as it is, taking the right half, performing certain operations. All this follow a structure called fiscal structure, and prior to the DES, you have a fiscal encryption algorithm. But AES do not follow that structure. Instead, the number of operations that the AES performs are, these are the four operations. One is the byte substitution, second one is the permutation, then third one is the mix columns, fourth one is the add round key. That means sub bytes, that means substitution of bytes, shift rows, that means permutation, shifting of the shifting or permuting the rows, mixing the columns, of course through arithmetic operations. This is where here your mathematical principles will come into the picture. In the case of DES, you don't use any kind of math behind it. After all, you are performing a substitution and transposition operations. In the case of AES, you perform the operations over a finite field, especially when you are doing the mixing of the columns. Okay, and then at the end of that round, you perform add round key. So in every round, what actually we do is we do substitution, we perform permutation, we perform mixing. These are the three operations. When once these three are done, you add a round key. Okay, so if you compare this AES and DES, AES was introduced in 1999, and that's what, as I've said, about late 90s. Your block size is fixed in the case of DES and AES, that is the plain text block, 64-bit and 128. Whereas the key length, you have a flexibility. Okay, and the kind of encryption operations what you are performing is the substitution and permutations. Of course, you are doing the same in the AES. The goals what you are able to achieve with the DES and AES are same, like confusion and diffusion. The design of the algorithm is open, like what we discussed for DES. The similar way, AES design is also open. Okay, so the overall diagram of AES is this. So you take the plain text block of 128-bit, which is nothing but the 16 bytes, perform kind of an operation called a pre-processing or a state array transformation. You transform the input into a state array called input state, of course 16 bytes, which is a 128-bit, then perform initial transformation, then perform certain rounds of operations. Like in the case of DES, you are perform fixed 16 rounds. In AES also you perform rounds. But remember, the number of rounds of operations are not fixed. It depends upon the length of the key, in the sense that if my key length is 128-bit, then number of rounds of operations are 10. If my key length is 192-bit, the number of rounds I perform is 12. If my length of key is 256-bit, then the number of rounds are 14. Okay, so it varies for the length of the key, number of operations, number of rounds. Okay, so in each round, as I've already said, you are performing the substitution of bytes, shifting of the rows, and mixing of the columns. Okay, these are the various features of AES. Especially, as I've mentioned, AES is not a fiscal structure in the sense that you don't divide into two blocks, kind of a thing, and all that. And key is provided. Again, similar to DES, you are providing the fixed length key. Like in the case of DES, you are 64-bit, but here it depends upon the you can vary the key length. Okay, but since the number of rounds depends upon the key length, and you have to expand the key. Okay, so the key that is provided as an input is expanded to 32-bit words. Okay, that means about 1408 bits in the case of 128-bit AES algorithm. Okay, so key scheduling is one of the important tasks, whether it is a case of DES or whether it is a case of AES, because you are going to supply only a fixed length key, and from that you are generating the sub keys for every round. Okay, so that is why the sub key generation or key generation, key scheduling algorithm is very, very important. So this we have already discussed. You have 4 stages or 4 operations that what we perform in every round. Okay, substitution of the bytes, shifting of the rows, mixing of the columns, and once these three operations are performed, you are actually performing the add round key. Okay, so and if you observe, these are the overall operations for single round. Okay, as already we have seen the overall operation. In single round, what happens? You take that input block of, and then you perform the substitution of bytes. Then you perform shifting of the rows and mix the columns as per a mixed column matrix that is already fixed. Okay, so and after all performing all these three operations, take the round key and add this round key to the output of mixed columns and get the new state matrix. So the new state matrix would go for the next round. Again, in the next round, perform the substitution of bytes. That means some bytes would be substituted with some bytes. And then shifting of the rows, permutation means few rows will go from here to there and there to here. It all depends. It's all fixed. Okay, it's fixed. And this fixing is known to everybody. Which row will go where, which byte would be substituted with what. All this is openly available. So this is the overall block diagram. In the case you take the state matrix of 16 bytes. Remember, in the case of DES, we use the terminology of bits. In the case of AES, we use the terminology of bits, bytes, and even words. Okay, so don't get confused. In the case when we are using this terminology. So you take 16 bytes and then you take the substitution of bytes, then get a new state. Then perform the shifting of rows. So this row will come here and this row will come here and this row will go here. So this type of shifting of rows. And then you take the output of that, you get a new state matrix or a new state array and perform the mixing of the columns. Remember, there is a fixed mixed column matrix with which we have to perform mixing of the columns. Output of that would be a new state matrix. Then you perform add round key, then you get a new state. So this is how your AES would work. So far we talked about the principles of cryptography, the fundamentals, and classical I have given the pointers, and we talked about symmetric crypto algorithms, AES and DES. And AES, even still, it's the most matured algorithm, and we are all using it in our digital transactions and in most of the applications, and found to be robust. Okay, so are there any doubts by now? Okay, how the plain text will be recovered on receiver side in DES? Remember, it is exactly reverse operation. Okay, you take the ciphertext and then perform the reverse operation of the decryption algorithm. So all these steps, whether it is AES or DES, all these steps are reversible in the sense that you supply the ciphertext, and when you perform the operations on the backside, backward direction, all these you should be able to get the plain text. Okay, and what specific encoding techniques used to convert text to binary for DES, AES, and RSA? See, typically there are various techniques to or approaches to convert or encode your plain text to the binary, standard approaches that are already there. Okay, so now we talked about these three, and I will proceed to asymmetric cryptography. So hope you are able to relate. We talked about symmetric crypto system, wherein which your same key would be used for decryption purpose also. Okay, now let us focus on the asymmetric crypto systems, wherein which you need a one key for encryption purpose, another key for decryption purpose. Okay, now with as I've said, your symmetric algorithms, though were popular and then people are using it, one fundamental problem with the symmetric algorithm is how you can have the common key between the sender and receiver, how to exchange or how to share this particular key. What happens, in case if I am sending this key, if my key is attacked, or if somebody eavesdrop into this communication and get the key, then my entire purpose of encryption has gone. So what is how I can address this? So the development of public key cryptography is one of the true revolution, and that's the reason why the popular algorithm, the RSA inventors, have received the Turing Award as well. So public key algorithms unlike the symmetric algorithms, public key algorithms are purely based upon mathematical functions. They just don't rely upon the substitution and permutation operations of what our symmetric key algorithms are. But let us not go into the notion that the symmetric key cryptography is not secure or asymmetric key crypto systems are secure. It is nothing like that. Okay, so both are having the security in their own way, and both are having the advantages and as well as disadvantages. Okay, so public key cryptography, or you call it as an asymmetric cryptography, both are same. Madam, am I audible?
Sure, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So public key cryptography is asymmetric, involving you call it as asymmetric because you are using one key for encryption and another key for the decryption purpose, and use of these two keys has a excellent consequence in the area of confidentiality, key distribution, and authentication. Lot of algorithms, lot of protocols have come with the help of these asymmetric key techniques. So what happens, when you are using for one key for encryption purpose and one key for decryption purpose, you are using predominantly you are using two keys. So we keep one key as a public and one key as a private, in the sense that among the two keys, that is KE and KD, you are keeping one key for encryption purpose and one key for decryption purpose. In these two, you keep one key as a publicly available and one key as a privately available. Okay. And remember, typically what happens, the encryption happens with the help of publicly available key. That is the reason why asymmetric key cryptography is also known as public key encryption algorithms, because the encryption has taken place with the help of publicly available key. But how the decryption would happen? In that case, decryption would happen with the help of private key, because decryption would happen with the help of private key. Since it is possible only with the help of private key and known only to that particular person, no one else can decrypt it. Okay.
Sir, what is the size of that symmetric key, sir, in symmetric key cryptography, sir? Is it possible to replace ASCII value for each plain text characters?
So in the case of symmetric key cryptography, as I've already mentioned, the DES length is 64-bit, AES length, variable length, 128-bit and all that. So essentially, the length of key is fixed in the case of DES. Length of key is flexible in the case of AES. You can choose 128, 256, 192, or even you can go further. Okay, and in fact, people recommend higher length keys. Now the point is, you need to first of all perform the encoding operations, and then you need to choose a key and then perform the encoding operations. Okay. Now the point for the asymmetric key cryptography, you need to convert into the binary digits, and then because you are going to perform the decimal values, because you are going to perform certain numerical operations. Let us see what happens with the case of public key crypto system. If you observe here, there is a sender called Bob, there is a receiver called Alice. Now Bob wants to send some piece of information to Alice. For that purpose, what Bob would do is, Bob would perform the encryption. Now how he can perform the encryption? We have already said that encryption can happen with the help of publicly available key. Okay. Now here we need to understand one thing. Every user in the communication, of course in this case we have two users or two communicating parties, Eve and Bob, Bob and Alice, both will have to generate a key pair. Before coming to the encryption, both has to generate the key pair. That means Bob would generate his own key pair, Alice would generate her own key pair. So Bob will generate a key pair and keep that as public key of Bob, private key of Bob. Alice would generate a key pair, public key of Alice, private key of Alice. Public key of Bob is known to everybody. Public key of Alice is known to everybody. But private key of these two parties would be known only to them. Now what Bob would do when he wants to send some piece of message, Bob would encrypt this piece of message with the help of public key of Alice. Okay, because public key of Alice is known not only to Alice but also to everybody, and hence Bob also knows it. So encrypt it with the help of public key of Alice and send this piece of information, which is the ciphertext. Now, since it is encrypted with the help of public key of Alice, you can decrypt it only with the private key of Alice. Now, private key of Alice is known to whom? Only to the Alice, because it is a private key. So Alice would receive the ciphertext and decrypt it with the help of the private key of Alice. Even if somebody listen to this communication of ciphertext, they cannot break it, because if they have to decrypt it, it is possible only with the help of private key of Alice. So the encryption and decryption happens like this. So encryption took place with the help of public key of Alice. Decryption took place with the help of private key of Alice. Since encryption is done with the help of public key of Alice, you call it as public key encryption algorithm. Okay. Now, the point is the same diagram. If you see here, the source and the destination. The source is encrypting the plain text with the help of destination public key. Okay. Since it is encrypted with the help of destination public key, even the cryptanalyst cannot break it, because it should be decryptable only with the help of private key of the destination. Okay. But is it that I can perform encryption only with the public key? Can I do with the private key of with the help private key also? Yes, you can perform. In such case, what happens when sender wants to send some piece of information to receiver? Sender encrypts that message with the help of his private key. In the sense, encryption took place with the private key of sender. Now decryption would happen with the help of public key of sender. That means public key of sender would be known to everybody. Now, once this piece of information received by the receiver will be able to decrypt it with the help of public key of the sender, because the key is publicly available, and get the plain text from the ciphertext. Now the point is, since it is encrypted with the help of private key of the sender and it is decrypted with the help of public key of the sender, not only the receiver, anyone else can decrypt it, because it is decryptable with the help of public key of the sender. Public key is known publicly. So there is no kind of a confidentiality here. But why we are performing it? If you observe, in the very beginning, we talked about one of the service or one of the objective of security is providing authentication. That means if you want to authenticate who is the sender of in this particular piece of information, you have to perform. That means you want to achieve authentication, then you can perform the encryption with the help of sender's private key and decrypt it with the help of sender's public key. Now you are authenticating who is the sender. Okay, there is a piece of message, and that piece of message is encrypted, and that encrypted message was decryptable only with a particular public key. And if I'm able to decrypt it, that means this message has come from only that particular individual. So encrypting with the help of receiver's public key and decrypting it with the help of receiver's private key provides you confidentiality, because no one else can decrypt it. It is possible to decrypt it only with the help of receiver's private key. But encrypting with the help of private key of the sender, decrypting it with the help of public key of the sender provides you the authentication. Okay. So achieving confidentiality, what to do? Achieving authentication, what to do? In the case of public key crypto systems. Okay. These are the things. Is it that I can achieve both? Of course you can achieve both by combining both, in the sense that first you perform the encryption with the help of private key of the sender. Then the corresponding ciphertext you encrypt with the help of public key of the receiver. So that means you are performing 2 times encryption. First time you are encrypting with the help of private key of the sender, and the corresponding ciphertext is encrypted with the help of public key of the receiver. Now you leave it in the communication channel. So the first piece is you can decrypt it only with the help of private key of the receiver, and obviously attacker cannot do anything. So at the destination, receiver receives it and decrypt it with the help of the with the help of his or her private key, and you get a ciphertext. That ciphertext need to be decrypted with the help of public key of the sender, and finally you get the message back. So this is, you are achieving both confidentiality and authentication. Okay, but in order to do this, or in order to implement such algorithms, first of all, the complexity is you need to generate the key pair. Okay, both sender and receiver should have their key pair, and the key pair should be in such a manner that I am able to perform encryption with one key and decryption with the another key. And another important characteristic is, if somebody knows the public key, other person should not be able to identify what is my secret key. Okay, so this is the complexity of the algorithm, or it is the beauty of the public key crypto systems. There are several such algorithms: RSA, Diffie-Hellman, digital signatures, and all that. Now let us focus on RSA. RSA was introduced in late 1970s, and this particular algorithm beauty is it is using the number theory principles, wherein which the security of the algorithm relies upon the difficulty to identify the prime factors. Okay, there are 3 components: key generation, encryption, and decryption. So the algorithm first identify 2 large prime numbers P and Q, and perform the computation or multiplication of these 2 large prime numbers N, and then it identifies a totient function called Euler's totient function, psi of n over n, that means P minus 1 into Q minus 1. Then it identifies a random integer E, such that E is relatively prime to psi of n. Then it performs or calculate a unique integer D, such that D is the inverse, multiplicative inverse of E at mod psi of n. Okay, so these are the typical operations in RSA algorithm. That's it. These are about 5 to 6 steps that are there in the RSA algorithm. Now what happens? You have certain variables. Among these variables, public key is your n comma E, and your private key is the D. Okay, so you have public key and you have private key. These are the 6 steps of RSA algorithm. Then what happens? You need to perform encryption. You take the plain text M. When I say plain text, obviously it will be in the natural language. You need to convert into the digits, and then you perform the encryption. So C is equal to M power E mod N. So your E is the public key, and N is also known publicly, and hence the sender will take the public key of the receiver and calculate the ciphertext. And at the receiver, he will take the ciphertext, and he knows his D because he only calculated it. And he computes the plain text back as M is equal to C power D mod N. These are the typical operations that would take place in the case of RSA algorithm. So in the overall ingredients of the algorithm, if you see, P and Q, what are chosen are the prime numbers. And remember, this key generation should happen at all the nodes or all the communicating parties. And you calculate N, and you choose a E, and you calculate a D. These are the operations. It looks so simple. The RSA algorithm looks so simple, but the complexity of the algorithm lies with your this number generation, finding the large prime numbers, and calculating N and all that. Remember, important characteristic is, even if you know E comma N, somebody cannot calculate D. That's where is your strength of this algorithm. In order to calculate D, an attacker needs to know what is P comma Q, and there are no computationally feasible algorithms that identify the P comma Q having known E comma N. Okay, so fortunately, the classical computers are not able to identify because you don't have an algorithm. That's where your security of RSA lies at. Okay, but this particular problem is solvable through the quantum cryptography, or sorry, quantum algorithms, in the sense that if you know E comma N, and the quantum computer can easily calculate the D. So in the sense that for a large numbers, classical computers, which takes about hundreds of years, quantum computers are able to solve it in a fraction of seconds because of the quantum computing abilities. So that's where our entire security community is worried about if a true realization of quantum computer happens. So this is the overall diagram of RSA algorithm. Again, I've taken it from the William Stalling's book. Those who are really interested to know more details of RSA, I would recommend to read RSA from these standard books. Are there attacks possible beyond quantum and all that? Yes, there are attacks possible on RSA, like chosen ciphertext attack, brute force attack, of course, which is a typical attack, mathematical attack, timing attacks. These are all the attacks that are possible on RSA. But having said that, there are mitigation techniques, but RSA is the standard algorithm that is applied in all the digital signatures and all that. And the point is, another public key cryptographic algorithm is called Diffie-Hellman key exchange. What I would do is, in the interest of time, I would skip this details of the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. But essentially, Diffie-Hellman key exchange is a I will not go much details of Diffie-Hellman. I will just touch upon Diffie-Hellman. What is Diffie-Hellman algorithm? Because in the interest of time. So Diffie-Hellman algorithm is another public key algorithm. The purpose of this algorithm is to exchange the key. Why to exchange the key? We already discussed. In the case of symmetric algorithms, you need to have the same key to be there between two communicating parties. Now, the point is how to have the same common key. Diffie-Hellman provides an opportunity to establish the common key between the two communicating parties. And similar to your RSA algorithm, the Diffie-Hellman is also based upon certain mathematical principles, number one, and the classical computers are unable to solve some of the mathematical problems. In the case of RSA, it is finding the prime factors. In the case of Diffie-Hellman, it is the case of finding the or calculating the discrete logarithms. Okay, so there are steps in the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Alice and Bob, how they can exchange the key without actually sharing it over the communication channel. Okay, so they typically exchange in case if you are sharing the key over the communication channel, one of the typical problem is that the eavesdropper can take this key back or can attack over the key. In the case of Diffie-Hellman, you are not actually sending the key over the channel, but you are able to calculate it. You are able to calculate in such a manner that both would establish the key without actually sharing it. Okay, that is called Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm. But is it that more robust? There are certain attacks on the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, also called man-in-middle attack over the Diffie-Hellman. Okay. So considering all this public key cryptographic, of course, there are algorithms such as elliptic curve cryptography algorithms or in the asymmetric key cryptography. There are so many algorithms which are mainly based upon certain mathematical problems. Remember one thing: if you observed the symmetric key crypto algorithms such as DES and AES, we have seen some complex diagrams. We have seen that text is processed through certain rounds of operations, 16 rounds, 10 rounds. And in the case of RSA, after all, I'm performing only 5 steps. Okay, so that means I am more convenient. But in the sense, if you in the practical applications, because of the mathematical calculations that are involved in the case of RSA or Diffie-Hellman and all that, asymmetric cryptography algorithms are not efficient like symmetric crypto algorithms. Okay, symmetric crypto algorithms are efficient, whereas asymmetric crypto algorithms are not efficient in the sense that they take computationally more time than symmetric. So in practical applications, what people do is I have a large plain text that need to be shared. So what I will do, I will encrypt that large plain text with the help of symmetric key algorithm, such as AES. Now I am sharing it with the receiver. But since I have encrypted with the help of symmetric key, I need to share the key. What I will do, this particular key, symmetric key, would be encrypted with the help of asymmetric key algorithm, such as RSA. Remember, my plain text would be always lengthy, but my key size is fixed. In the case of DES, it is 64. In the case of AES, it could be 128 or 192, 256, and so on. So my key length is fixed. My plain text is large. So I encrypt my plain text with the help of symmetric key. That particular key alone, I would encrypt with the help of asymmetric key and then share it. So I'm sharing my ciphertext and also I'm sharing my key. So in practical applications of encryption, we use asymmetric key crypto algorithms for the purpose of encrypting symmetric key. So, but as I've already said, if you have quantum computer in place, these algorithms are becomes vulnerable. I will just pause for a while and see if any queries are there. Okay, what specific? I think I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll just proceed with the quantum computing principles. So classical computing devices increase the computing performance. If you see from the Charles Babbage engine, digital engines, and you have seen how the classical computers have progressed well, especially the CPUs and all that in the number of operations. You know very well about Moore's law, and all these things are what actually they are doing is they are making the operations faster by increasing the clock frequency. Either that or increasing the number of operations within that particular clock cycle. Both by optimizing both, the efficiency of the classical computers were increased. But we all know that the classical computers scalability is coming to a saturation, and Moore's law is going to be down the line, it's going to fail. So in early 90s, people have started showing interest about quantum computers, and that's the reason why in 1994 Peter Shor has shown that how your RSA, the fundamental problem on which the RSA was built upon, that means unable to solve or identify the prime factors of a large number. Okay, so Shor has devised an algorithm, but at that time, though the algorithm was there were no practically quantum computers. So slowly, in the quantum arena, there were interest built upon, especially in the last 5 to 6 years. There is a tremendous growth in the case of quantum computers, and people were realizing with the 50 qubits, in the sense that we call bits in the case of classical computers. In the case of quantum, you call it as a qubit. Okay, so with 50 to 100 qubits, people have realized the quantum computer, and of course there are companies such as D-Wave who have even gone to 1,000, 2,000 qubits. But of course, with that qubits, the number of operations, the kind of operations that are going to be performed are limited. But there are steps in order to realize the quantum bits. So how these quantum bits operate? In fact, in the classical qubits operates in the with the help of classical physics, whereas the quantum bits, that means the qubits, operate with the help of quantum mechanics or the quantum physics, which is the theory of physical world, which is not deterministic. Remember, the classical computers are all deterministic in nature, what we are doing. But quantum computers based upon probabilistic. Okay, they are not deterministic in nature. They deal with inherently uncertainty. Okay, so let me go directly to quantum computing principles. How you represent the information. So information in a classical computer would be represented as either 0 or 1. That means the bits. In the case of quantum bits, you go in the case of quantum computing, you go for qubits. Okay. What is the difference between quantum bit and qubit? In the case of normal bit, either you will have a 0 or 1. In the case of quantum, you can have a superposition of both. Okay. A quantum bit can have superposition of both 0 and 1. Okay. And also one qubit can be entangled with the another qubit. Okay. So that means a state of a qubit would influence the state of another qubit if they are entangled together. Okay, so this is not there in the, both are not there with the classical computers. Okay, so a classical computer again is a deterministic. It means you get 0, you get a 1. That's it. Okay, whereas in the case of quantum, you would have infinite possible states. It's not just simply 0 or 1. It's not simply 0 or 1. When I say what is the state of a qubit, it could be infinite states. Okay, how you realize that? How you realize that? No, that is where actually the people were banging their head, and there are physical realizations through various technologies like trapped ions and all that. And in order to exhibit these properties of superposition, that means being in multiple states and influencing with one another, realizing such type of bits is the most challenging and complex task, and wherein which major the scientists from physics, electronics, and other disciplines, math and all other disciplines at various companies and research labs, they are trying to implement such type of bits. And how you process once you have the bits, how you process the information. In the case of classical computer, at the fundamental level, bits are processed sequentially. In the case of quantum computer, since a bit would be in the multiple states, being in a superposition state, you are actually doing not sequential but performing a parallel activity. This parallel nature only is providing quantum computers ability to solve certain major problems like what we discussed in the case of asymmetric key. Then we are saying that output is not deterministic, output is probabilistic. Then how you interpret the result? So as I've already said, the answers of the quantum computers, the solutions of the quantum computers are probabilistic in nature, meaning that because of the superposition, means being in a multiple states and also being in an entangled state, you have multiple answers, okay, for a particular computation. So how to handle that scenario? It is by performing repeated operations. Okay, so so these are the factors that allow quantum computers to solve certain cases of complex problems, which are not solvable by the classical computers. But at the same time, I would like to make a caveat here that let us not jump into the conclusion that I will have a quantum laptop on my desktop now. No, it's not possible. So there are certain class of problems that the quantum computers can solve, and quantum computers can be used for that particular purpose. Not that they can replace all the classical computers or devices that are there here now. And if some company says that no, we developed a laptop or a desktop or I'm a quantum computer I'm using it, it's not that for all purposes. No, you have still certain classical problems that are to be addressed only by the classical computers, but there are specific problems, computationally intensive problems, computationally intractable problems for classical computers that can be solved by the quantum computers. Okay, so there is this particular article about past, present, and future of scalable computing technologies. This gives you a better understanding of how you compare the classical computers and the quantum computers. Those who are interested on this particular thing, please have a look at this. And this is the one important slide which you may be interested. As in the case of classical bit, either you are having 0 or 1, and because of that, at any given point of time, classical bit would be in the one of the possible 2 power n permutations. Whereas in the case of quantum bit, it is both 0 and 1. And hence what happens, it is possible at a given point of time, your quantum bit would be in all possible 2 power n possible permutations. This is where your ability of the quantum computer to solve large computational problems, because at any given point of time, a qubit can represent all possible permutations. Okay, and how it represents, I think in the interest of time, I will skip it because we need to go for the quantum key distribution. So what we talked about is the one qubit. But imagine if you are having 2 qubits. What are the possible states? You have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. Remember, in the case of classical, your two bits would be in either of one of these states, but 2 qubits would be there with all possible 4 qubits, 4 basic states. Now imagine if you scale it with the 3 qubits. Imagine it with more and more the number of qubits, you are going to have more and more dimensional space, and hence you are actually increasing the dimensionality, and the hope you are able to relate that with the dimensional reduction problems that what we do, because you need to cut down the problem space. But that will not be the case in the case of quantum computing. Okay. Now, there are various benefits of quantum computing: superposition state, probabilistic system, entanglement, and wave particle duality. These are the various features that makes the quantum computing much useful in the case of cryptography and sensing. Remember one thing, these properties of quantum computers, with the help of that, as I've already said, you are having a larger computational space. And because of that, it is posing a challenge to the existing cryptographic algorithms. Now, we talked about AES. What is the impact of quantum computers over AES? There is nothing much impact, because there is nothing that the quantum computers would solve here. Only thing is, if you increase the larger key space, that is fine. But if you see the public key algorithms or asymmetric key algorithms such as RSA, or elliptic cryptography, or Diffie-Hellman algorithms, or digital signature algorithms, which are using the finite field cryptography, all these things, algorithms, are no longer going to be secure. Okay, so and hence we need to have a new set of cryptographic algorithms. And not only that, this is the challenge the quantum computing is posing towards cryptography. But at the same time, the quantum computer, or the quantum principles, properties such as entanglement, superposition, and the non-deterministic nature, they are providing certain opportunities to the cryptographers to develop new set of cryptography algorithms. Okay, so one is the challenge that is posing towards the modern cryptography, that is especially public key cryptography. Second one, it is providing an opportunity to the researchers to develop new set of algorithms. So such algorithm, so in the entire talk, we talked about all these things. I think we have finished quantum computing principles. Of course, I have given you a very bird's eye view. Those who are really interested about quantum computing, please go through the other literature that is available. It's an interesting topic, and a lot of research is happening in that direction. Now, let us focus on quantum cryptography, especially the key distribution problem. What is the key distribution problem? We have already talked in the symmetric key algorithms. So the symmetric key algorithms, as I've already said, whenever you are having the large plain text, you need to encrypt with the help of symmetric key only, because of their efficiency. How you share the key, how you distribute the key, with the help of asymmetric key algorithms. But in the previous slide, we have already seen that no longer the asymmetric key algorithms are secure. You need to go for a new, better algorithms, because the asymmetric key algorithms are based upon certain mathematical problems which are breakable with the help of quantum computers. But let us not jump into the another conclusion that tomorrow quantum computers within another 1 year time. No, people suspect that within the span of 10 to 12 years, we will have a quantum computers that are built which can break the classical asymmetric key crypto algorithms. Now, coming back to what is our fundamental problem, why we went for asymmetric key crypto algorithms? Because I am going to encrypt my plain text, and I need to share it with the receiver, and I have to encrypt this particular key. How I am going to securely share it? That is my fundamental problem. That means the key distribution problem. Alice wants to say something to Bob, and it is encrypted with the help of symmetric key, because symmetric key are efficient than asymmetric. Now, my key has to be shared. How I have to share? That is the key distribution problem. So, in order to share, how I can share it? So these are the same, whatever I have illustrated. These are the infographics of the same problem of key sharing or key distribution. The typical in the typical scenario, we are depending upon asymmetric key crypto algorithms. Okay, in the sense of public key infrastructure. But we have already seen that no longer public key infrastructure would be secure if a true realization of quantum computers happen. How to handle that scenario? Now, people have come up with new protocols. that is called quantum key distribution. In the sense, how I can utilize the properties of quantum computer and distribute my keys. What are the properties that I can use? One is the superposition. That means qubits would be in multiple states. A bit can be in multiple states. That is the one philosophy that I want to explore. Second philosophy is qubits are entangled with each other. That means one qubit state would influence the other qubit state if they are entangled. So that is the entanglement. Similarly, the outcome would be probabilistic in nature. So these are the three properties that are exploited by the cryptography researchers and come up with a new algorithm called quantum key distribution algorithm, or in short QKD algorithm. Now let us see how actually this works. There are several algorithms in the sense that variants of quantum cryptography protocols. So predominantly we have a BB84 protocol, that what we will be seeing it. So the fundamental problem is way of distributing and sharing the secret key between the communicating parties. So how we do that? So essentially what we are going to talk now is about BB84 protocol, which is named after its inventors called Charles Bennett and Gillis Broussard. That's why it is called BB84 protocol. So the BB84 protocol uses 4 different states of the qubit. As I've said, a qubit can be in multiple states. So it uses 4 different states of a qubit. So the 4 qubit states are like, totally 4 states. One is the 0 state, another one is state 0, state 1, plus and minus. In the sense that you have totally 4 states. So up arrow 0, down arrow 1, and the left arrow 1 plus state, and negative the minus in the right arrow. In fact, if you go into the literature of quantum computing, these states would be represented in the help of a block sphere diagram. Okay, so what the sender would do? Sender would take these 4 different states of the qubit, and then next he would take 2 different bases for this particular generating these the qubit states. One is called vertical basis, which is this diagram what you are able to see, and then you have the horizontal basis. So now totally we have what we can say is that we have 4 states, 4 different states, and 2 basis states. In the practical realization, how we actually qubit would be realized is through the help of photon values. These photons would be used, and these different states would be achieved with the help of polarization values of these photons. So you say these are the polarized values, and these are the basis states in the case of quantum computing. When you are reading the literature, people use different terminology. Some says polarized state. What do you mean by polarized state? Because in order to achieve these 4 different states, the photon values would be polarized. Okay, and that's why people call it as the polarized states. Now finally what we have here is 4 different states and 2 measurement bases. Of course, you can call them the measurement basis as the vertical basis and horizontal basis. And obviously the possible outcomes from this is the red and blue. Let us call that as red and blue. Okay, that means 1 and 0 or whatever it is, 1 minus 1 or kind of a thing. So you have red and you have a blue. Now how you measure this? How you measure this single qubit state, in the sense that, imagine if fundamentally you have 4 different states. I have up arrow state, and my basis state is also in the up arrow direction, and my possibility of getting up arrow outcome is with 100% probability, up arrow state. Similarly, if my horizontal, if my polarization state is vertical, horizontal, and if my basis state is also horizontal, and outcome of getting the probability is 100%. But whereas when the measurement basis and the qubit state do not align with each other, in the case that what we are seeing in the bottom 2 examples, the outcome is different. In the sense that outcome is not deterministic kind of a thing. It is a probabilistic in the sense that you get 50% probability of getting a blue, and in the same way you have a 50% probability of getting even a red. That means 1 0 or 1 minus 1, whatever it is the way you code it. And similarly, look at the other state wherein which your measurement, your basis state and your qubit state are not equal. You have a probability of getting the red with 50%, and in the same way you have a probability of getting blue also in the 50%. So essentially that means you have totally 4 qubit states: vertical up, vertical down, horizontal right and horizontal left, and you have 2 basis states. Okay, one is the vertical and also one is the horizontal. With this 4 states and 2 basis states, you get about 8 possible outcomes. Among this, wherever your basis state and also your qubit states are aligned with each other, you are getting a 100% probability of getting the outcome. When they are not aligned, you are getting only a 50% probability of getting an outcome. Now, how I relate all this to my distribution problem? That means key distribution problem. Let us see that. Now imagine Alice is there and Bob is there. What Alice wants to send is the random sequence of R's and B's. That means 1 0, or you call whatever it is. So blue, red, 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 blue, blue. Then takes the basis state and what is the consequence or the sequence of the directions. So this is the sequence of directions that what the Alice would get, and that would be encoded into the qubits. In the case of 4 states that what Alice has taken, these encoded states of qubits would be shared with the Bob. Okay. Now, what Bob would do the reverse process, in the sense that take the received qubit states, and remember Bob has to get the sequence of R's and B's. Okay, the task for the Bob is to get the sequence of R's and B's. He got the states of the qubits. Okay, now he has to go back direction, but Bob do not know what is the basis directions that Alice has chosen. So what the Bob would do, Bob would take random basis. He knows that there are only vertical and then horizontal basis. So he take the random basis and try to measure the qubit states. Then what happens? If you observe, there are cases wherein which, in the sense where Bob has, in the random sequence, he has taken the bases that are exactly of Alice, he get the output of exactly as of Alice. Wherever he failed, he would not get the output as of Alice. But I cannot 100% say that he cannot get, but I can say that he cannot get with a 50% probability. Now, if you observe, wherever that are similar, so take an example, wherever that are similar, you would notice that the qubit state and the random basis states are same when the measurement outcome is same. Of course, there are cases wherein which, though they are not identical, you have got the same output. It is because of the probability, which is not deterministic. Okay. So now what happens? If you see here, how I can cross check. Now Bob has got some answers. How I can cross check? What Bob would do, Bob would make an announcement of the basis what he has used. Alice also would make the announcement of the basis what Alice has used. But remember, they will not reveal what are the the inputs, or what are the bits that are what are the qubit states they have taken. They will only announce the basis. By cross-checking what are the bases each has used, both Bob and Alice will keep the bases which is giving the same output and discard all those which are not giving the same output. So consider only those as the key for encryption purpose. So now decode this key into your binary form and use this particular key for for corresponding symmetric key encryption purpose. Remember, what we have seen is only for about sequence of 4 alphabets. But in a typical practical scenarios, your symmetric key algorithm would require about 192, 256, 1028 kind of a bits. Obviously, Alice has to generate those number of qubit states, and Bob has to decode it. But you may get a doubt that what happens in the case of some attacker or kind of eavesdropper who listens to this communication. If anybody, the beauty of the quantum computing is that if anybody wants to measure the state of the qubit, you get up into collapsing the qubit state into one state. So when Bob is measuring, he gets the answer. Imagine if somebody measures it, they get the answer, but that would be known to the Alice and Bob. Okay, so that's where your security of the algorithm or the security of quantum key distribution lies upon. So though the communication channel, both Alice and Bob announce that basis, the eavesdropper listens to the communication. If they try to calculate or measure the state of the qubit, the quantum nature would goes off. And once the quantum nature goes off, both Alice and Bob would be aware of it, and they will be easily identifying that somebody is eavesdropping the communication. Okay, so the quantum key distribution, of course, not only this particular this one, the attack. There are some more attacks on the quantum key distribution are also there, but it is providing some solution to the key distribution problem. So allows the Bob and Alice to establish a shared secret key without need to communicate the key about key itself. Okay. Recently, there was a development of between China and European Union in establishing a key distribution link between China and Europe, and they have practically shared the the photon values through the states of the qubits, and they have chosen a basis at Beijing and then Vienna, and then established the the quantum key, and then that is used for encryption purpose. These are the developments that have taken place. So now in the overall lecture, we have talked about all these things, and what is the roadmap ahead? In the short term, we need to see that the classical cryptography, in the sense that our traditional cryptographic algorithms are size of these algorithms is increased, but in the longer term, you need to have quantum resistant cryptographic algorithms. One typical use case we have seen is the quantum key distribution. Okay, and these are the various references I have. One is as I've mentioned, William Stallings' Cryptography and Network Security, and those who are interested can look at this particular resource from Accenture of cryptography in post-quantum world. That is also interesting. And there are several animated videos that are available in YouTube about illustration of quantum algorithms, quantum key distribution, and all that. And as such, there are some books on quantum computing and applied approach through Springer, and also the various literature from the published articles. So that's all I have now. I tried to give an overall view of how the developments from cryptography to the quantum computing or quantum the quantum cryptography has come, and analyze certain plus and minus of all these algorithms, and the attacks that are possible, what to use, when to use, and what is the principles of quantum computing, and how that can be leveraged to distribute the key, which is the fundamental problem. Okay, that's all I have now, madam. Any doubts you have, I'm happy to take it.
Participants, we are open for discussion. If you have any doubts, please post in the comment section, or you can unmute and speak.
So yeah, please.
So you can speak.
No, that's fine, madam. If anyone is having a doubt, I'm happy to
Sir,
clarify.
how do you calculate security, privacy, and trust management issues for this quantum computing, sir?
Okay, so one is the trust, privacy. These are all different. Each is having a different definition and how you define it. The quantum computing is providing the security. Okay, in the sense that in order to distribute your keys. Similarly, there are cryptographic algorithms for achieving confidentiality and all that, which you can explore. I think I have taken almost 35 minutes extra.
Anyone else? If there are any queries, please post in the comment section.
If anyone is having queries, please post it in the chat window, or else you can write to me. I'll be able to answer what are all the queries, and also if you have any doubts or you want to explore more, please feel free to write to my email address. And as I've already mentioned, there is a lot of work is happening in different verticals. One on security itself, two on quantum computing, three on combining both quantum computing and cryptography. A lot of research is happening. It's an interesting area. Only thing is that it's booming, and it's in the infancy, and especially for academic researchers, we need to understand. If you are from computer science or different background, you need to understand the quantum principles, which are fundamentally physics nature. And then, like say, take an example. I have said, one bit, which is a qubit, will be in the multiple state. How it is possible? Okay. Now, how I can program that? Similarly, the output is in the probabilistic in nature. How I can handle my output? Okay. How I can compute when you have such multiple state qubit? How I can, first of all, how I can write a program for that? Okay. How I can compute in that particular multiple state environment? So these are the interesting things which one can explore. But a lot of work is happening, and companies are trying to invest more, both for security, machine learning, and in general solving biology, drug discovery, because there are certain problems which only the quantum computers can solve. So they are investing more on that. So those who are interested can jump into this and this one. But in general, I try to give, because of the cybersecurity faculty development program, I started from symmetric, asymmetric, and quantum. Okay. If there are any queries, fine. Otherwise, you can share, your queries if you have, even through email. Okay.
I guess we are done with the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
No, sir. So, thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session, because you have started from the basics, then got into each and every aspects of like symmetric, asymmetric, and then the importance of why we are going into this. It was very informative. Like from the basics to the very required area of cryptographic research in current era. So thank you, sir, so much for your time and the information you have shared. Thank you, sir, once more, like from the whole IIIT Kottayam community. Thank you, sir, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thanks for patiently listening. I think I have crossed my time limit. But yeah, thank you. Thanks for patiently listening. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.